Hi there, welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show. There, leader, in today's conversation, we will be talking about better habits for pandemic resilience. How many of you out there are needing a little bit of resilience right now as we dive deeper into the COVID-19 crisis? But we as a nation are on our way up. And today we have with us Dr. Steven Stohler. Dr. Steven Stohler is a chiropractic physician and a certified lifestyle educator. Dr. Stohler is the driving force behind his organization, Fundamental Health Solutions. His expertise lies in assessing the body and designing individualized wellness and lifestyle programs. For all you Clifton Strengths enthusiasts, Dr. Stohler leads with developer, activator, restorative learner, and responsibility. Dr. Stohler, welcome to the show. Hey there, Dr. Steve. It is great to see you. How are you today?
Very good. Good morning, Dr. Kelly. Doing well. Excited.
All right. I'm excited too. I'm excited to have you here. It's just so nice to have you on the show. And I certainly appreciate you just taking the time, just to kind of pause and be with me on the show and really to add knowledge around resilience and staying healthy. And I get to talk with a lot of leaders. And there's one thing that sets, a good leader apart from a great leader, and that's all about the passion that they have around the work that they do, as well as how they serve others. And, I know you personally as well as professionally, so that passion does shine through as you promote, this lifestyle of wellness to people. And that's not just in Southwest Florida where you're located, but people come to you from around the nation, and they have benefited from your expertise. And I think that's amazing. There are so many topics. You're welcome. So many topics that we can, talk about and pull from today because of your, expansive expertise. But today we're going to really talk about what's on a lot of minds of leaders, and that is COVID-19. And we have, these guidelines that have been passed down, and they talk about social distancing, washing hands, protective gear. And I'd love to hear from you about maybe the top 3 things that leaders can do to maybe lessen the risk of contracting infection or developing, serious complications moving forward, because we still are in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for letting me have a little platform to talk to people about it. As everybody knows with the COVID-19, there really isn't a cure, right, for this viruses. I mean, viruses kind of occur and have occurred and will occur in the future. So to set yourself up to try to be resilient, you have to have like almost 2 mindsets. You have to have obviously the acute, I'm in a situation mindset. But then you also have to have more of that long-term mindset of like, well, how can I make myself the best I can be, or my best self, my best possible self in the future, so that my resilience is up, right? So since we know that viruses, they just can't be stopped, they can just be managed, right? So that this is, I've talked about this with you before, problems versus predicaments. I mean, this is a predicament. So some of these things that you cannot control, the seasonality of flus and viruses and that come through, you can try to get ahead of them with certain things, whether it's allopathic or complementary kinds of things, but there really is no cure, right? So with that said, best practices of what you can do to make yourself resilient is really your best defense, to combat not just COVID-19, but whatever comes next. Because before COVID-19, there was, SARS and MERS and all those kinds of things. Ebola, these are all viral infections. So obviously good hygiene to a certain degree, especially in acute situations, but also not just getting so hygienic that you make yourself less resilient in the future. So there's times when you want to be super vigilant, and then there might be times that you might want to try to actually increase your at least bacterial exposure so that you can build some resilience. But some of the frameworks that I work with are simple lifestyle things, so where I come from is, is this think right, sleep right, eat right, move right, some of these basic lifestyle habits that anyone can employ. And you see the people doing it, and now I've seen it more than ever, just even walking around the neighborhood and things like that. But you don't really get as much focus on that from the top political leaders, because they're really trying to come up with obviously an acute medical survival plan. And so I kind of consider myself a bottom up leader rather than a top down leader, in the sense of what can the individual do to help flatten the curve or make themselves the best case scenario, so that they don't add or complicate the top people's problems of trying to manage resources and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that is great information. And I heard you say something there that I've heard in the past, and it's about the hygiene. And
Mm.
so there are times when you want to, yes, we want to be washing our hands and whatnot, but can you explain a little bit more about, allowing our body to not be so hygienic during times? What does that look like?
Well, the immune system is kind of divided into two big categories, and we were built that way, right? So we were about to have this innate immune system, which would protect us from outside infections, and then we have this acquired immune system where we memorize that response in our body, and we set up almost like stockpiling things to come up against it. Sometimes they're effective for new mutations of it, and sometimes they're not. And your body has to have that adaptability. uh, the hygiene theory would be, just no germs, no germs. I mean, we're in a culture right now that's actually gone to war. And clearly they say it, we're in a war, but we've been in a war for a long time against germs. And that has created superbugs in hospitals and MRSA and all these other kinds of things, because, how can you be at war with something that's a natural part of yourself? So to me, it's a
Mm,
little bit, I understand, obviously this is a big problem, and war is a very mobilizing word from a leadership standpoint, but, you can go too far in that process as well. So, some of the things that we're having problems with now, as far as our own immunity, which we clearly have problems with the immune system, not just necessarily this epidemic, but cancer and autoimmune diseases and those kind of things. It's all part of that system. So some of our principles of not allowing kids to get dirty, and and not obviously being exposed to bacteria and those kinds of things actually lowers our resistance. We were designed to take in and some bacteria and to then create our own immune responses. And if we don't really do that, then we just don't build the system up, uh, and that doesn't serve us going forward. So it's kind of like, if we don't have the capacity already set up, then little things, or in this case a big thing, can really wipe us out with devastating effects. I mean, clearly this one is very virulent, and it takes people into very acute distress quickly. And if you don't have that mechanism, it's kind of like working out to a certain degree. If you never work out, just simple tasks will task you, and if you really try to load the system acutely, it just will break. And what we see is a percentage of these people are breaking under the
mm,
stress of it, because they haven't prepared themselves enough through many mechanisms, to be able to become resilient to that. Clearly what we see is, like, um, in the process, they high risk people, these are chronic disease people,
right.
these are elderly people, infirm people, you see it with the nursing homes and things like that. Obviously they were already set up to be high risk anyway. And then males, why do males live less long than females as well? So there's clearly some of these chronic disease factors are also players in this acute question that we're having. So while I think it's important to ask the acute response questions, it's also to think about, like, especially with this one that really likes people that have these chronic disease comorbidities, like, what can we do to put ourselves in a better place so that we're at less risk. So they're not mutually exclusive, chronic versus acute. They actually, your chronic diseases actually have a huge influence on these acute, how you respond acutely to certain stresses. And this is just, in my mind, just in a pretty severe acute stress.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of that, just knowing that the work you do, and you can tell me if I'm on the right track here too, is that you are all about nutrition. You're not just a chiropractor. You are like this total holistic doc. And so I'm thinking nutrition and playing into that, some of the things that you just said about, um, if somebody is already, has good health, um, how can they maybe boost that with nutrition? I'm just going to go there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I would probably back you up just a little bit. I mean, yeah, yes, I really kind of consider myself, and I have spent quite a bit of time with lifestyle, more than even just nutrition. I think that, lifestyle modification, and I try to study lifestyle habits so it's not just necessarily what you eat. Again, it goes back to that think right, the thoughts that you think, or those, that psycho neuroimmunology or affective immunology. I think that is a big role. Sleep, that's another big component to it. I like to say that your best day starts the night before, for many reasons.
Yes.
The good night's sleep that you get will determine a lot of those things. So that's where our sleep right comes in. Eat right, clearly, we know that the foods that we choose can, determine our outcome with a lot of things. And then even movement. So, the moving, that has an influence. There's been a lot of research where too much movement can break us down, but too little movement can also break us down as well. So there's kind of a sweet spot for all those things. So I try to really focus on all those things. Then as a chiropractor, a lot of people will come in there and they'll say, I can't move because when I do, I break, right? I have pain. So, we try to come up with programs, that start them in that door, and then that goes that way. But as far as immune system goes and eating, I mean, surely just from a food standpoint, there's lots of things that you can do. I mean, the worst thing that you probably could do at this point is to be sitting at home and ordering or eating, way too many processed foods. So I mean, one thing that the United States does well is that it manufactures disease
Mm.
pretty, almost better than most people on the planet. I mean, I tried to look at some of the more recent data. I mean, in the past, we've been 39th in the world for longevity, and they don't even measure health span. They only measure lifespan. And that's a little bit of a, strange number, but we've been 39th, for quite a few years. I looked on one site today and it said we were actually down to 46th. So somewhere between 39 and 46. So, I mean, how can we not expect to suffer really more than other countries, maybe based on we have a sick population, right? So, I mean, when it comes to eating right, it comes down to a lot of things. It comes down to as much as what you eat, as much as what you don't eat, and then even when you eat. So, there's lots of things that would tell us, what are those kinds of things. So, eating real food, that's important. This is kind of Michael Pollan's things, not too much, and preferably, vegetables, right? So those things always work for multiple reasons, whether that's the antioxidants or the polyphenols or the fiber that you get from those things. Those always work. And then, of course, there's obviously specific things that you can do beyond that, but we try to get people to do at least um, intermittent fasting, where they eat in a window and then they abstain from eating in a period of time. That's one of our key things to talk about, because eating too much food actually it takes some of the energy away to process food, and it can sometimes not give our appropriate systems the time to rest, and then not eating, at all, that also, or caloric restriction also can impair our immune system. So, there's a sweet spot in there, and depending on what the person's tolerance is, that might be a 12-hour eating window or an 8-hour eating, depending on where they are. For someone that's, less healthy or less robust, they might not be able to go more than 12 hours without food. So, we try to scale it to where they are. As far as like things that you can do to beef up your immune system, which we've seen is as far as like supplements. So I like food as a primary source of nutrition, and and then supplements are just that, designed to supplement some of the things that we might not be getting from our diet. You know, from the 1930s, they've known there's certain things that are just missing, and then of course, if you're obviously eating processed food, there's quite a bit of things missing, or we wouldn't have all the chronic disease that we have. You know, and the drive to sometimes overeat. So certain things that obviously that you know, people can do just in this acute time. Which if you see hospitals in New York as a standard protocol, you know, for the first time, giving vitamin C, you know, intravenously, that clearly tells you there's something going on there that they would be doing it in an acute hospital setting. And those people are sometimes having even better outcomes than ventilator patients, you know what I mean? So as far as that goes, so in this case, maybe the vitamin C is a very powerful tool to use. I mean, it's also interesting, like there's some kind of trying to get their mind around this COVID-19. One of the first symptoms they talk about is like loss of taste and loss of smell, which is a classic zinc deficiency symptom. So, and actually the mechanism of, you know, the anti-malarial drugs that they're kind of promoting, it's a zinc ionophore. So it actually increases your zinc levels in your own body. So the drug actually does that by, you know, how it recycles, you know, zinc from your system and upregulates that. So that can boost your immune system. So those are just two key nutrients right off the bat that people are finding effective, not just with COVID-19, but, you know, just any kind of viral thing or any kind of immune threat. You know, that's something that, and there's lots and lots others, obviously, but those are the ones that are kind of getting the biggest play, you know, and why they're getting the biggest play.
Yeah, they're important. And those are great, you know, touch points for leaders to remember about, you know, exercising during this time, especially, you know, and that's great for stress management as well, right? Eating healthy as well as, you know, supplementing, you know, in a way that's good for your body. And I know that you do a lot of work with people with that. And so those are great while we're home, and that definitely I'm assuming should carry over. You know, after this stay-at-home order, we know it's temporary, and you know the nation will be going back to its quote-unquote normal state in the coming months. So as people go back to work, what are some maybe considerations or steps to take just to continue to protect themselves? And I know we just mentioned, you know, exercise, eating right, supplementing. Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that's a great place to start. I mean, it hits, you know, mind, body, and spirit, all in those things. But I mean, hopefully this time is a time for reflection and a opportunity to look at priorities, right? You know, so that's, I mean, this is a great pause to reflect on what's actually important to you, especially as people's pocketbooks are stressed and they have to discriminate between what they spend their money on as well as what they maybe, you know, spend their time on. So, I mean, my hope and prayer through all this is that having this opportunity of just like not having the hustle and bustle, you know, because it is hard to change habits, you know, especially when you're busy, right? You know, it's hard to, you know, to take on many new things and you're adding, you know, to your day. So we've had a lot of things taken out of our day. So we've tried to find things that would fill our day. And, you know, and a lot of people that I see just walking around the neighborhoods or walking with their kids or riding bikes or exercising, which I'd never seen in previous months. And I've been walking, you know, for a long time, and the traffic is much higher. So hopefully out of this, you know, some of the social protection that we're using, you know, will also carry over in these personal habits as well. And that we'll just prioritize like that fact that, you know, I really felt good when I took that morning walk. I'm going to figure out a way to figure that in. You know, I really felt better going to bed at, you know, 9:30 or 10. You know, I really felt better after I got a good night's sleep because I didn't, you know, so let me prioritize that good night's sleep, you know. Wow, I felt really anxious after, you know, maybe watching something that might promote negativity all day long. Let me turn on something that, or read something or do something that, really fosters some positivity. Now that I have the time to focus on some of these, positive things, let me focus on those kinds of things. So, I mean, I'm hoping that out of this is this reawakening of, what is our purpose, what's important to us, and really, just like we're discriminating with our finances, what we're spending right now, we're discriminating with our time even more so, of how, we know we're going to have to go back to work, we know we're going to have to put a certain amount of time into those kinds of things, but maybe we should not try to manage acutely our health um, at the next invention, or the next, obstacle that comes in our way, as far as the next virus or the new wave that comes back or something like that. If they're saying we're going to have another wave, and I can't say they are, and I can't say that we won't, but, why wouldn't I make myself ready, for that next wave right now? I think that preparedness is, if we're able to survive this, then why wouldn't we stay prepared and vigilant for the next time?
Yeah. I love what you said about this time, and I find it just a very interesting time where people are finding themselves in different situations. People are working from home or not working. People have their children at home if they have young children, and really being able to be still and know that this is temporary, but this is a time where we can do that self-reflection like you talked about, and really see, it is how we're living aligning with what we value. Is our work, how we're working, aligning with what we value? And so it is an unusual time, but it is my belief that this time is um, it's time to have this time. I'm going to say it like that. I think it's time for everybody as a nation and as a world to take a step back, take that intentional pause, and really reflect, mind, body, spirit, like you were saying, and really be able to get things right and how we're
Yeah, or
aligning
work towards,
ourselves.
I mean, the concept of perfection. Well, I can't do it perfectly, so that's actually like one of the lowest bars that you can set yourself, is to perfection, because it's so unattainable that most people
Yes,
just opt out, right? So
that's right.
I like to say little things make big differences, and we're both people of faith, so um, if everything is divinely driven, even uh, you, sometimes for protection, sometimes in this case for maybe correction,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that maybe this is a time where, like, we have to make some corrections, because clearly in many ways we're on the wrong path.
Yeah, and I think as a nation, we've done a really good job of turning the tide and implementing some healthy habits.
Yeah.
With the guidelines and with people like you who are a cheerleader for so many. Um, so I know that your practice, and you've talked about this, is about developing healthy habits. So what are some habits that we should be continuing in order to protect ourselves, from that second wave if it does come?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's a reality that it could from where we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, like from the sleep right, standpoint, is just like really setting, just like you said, strict time frames for your eating window. There are strict time frames from your sleeping window, that we know with the nurses studies in the past, that if you stay up all night, and versus if you have the late shift or the night shift, you're much more likely to have diabetes, you're much more likely to carry more weight. Well, how does that happen? Those things all happen through inflammation and hormone dysregulation and all those things. So it isn't just simply, well, if I just sleep. I mean, sleep has influences on all systems. So really setting a strict bedtime is one of the best things that you can really do. And of course, and while it's ideal to get 7 to 9 hours sleep, just like it's ideal to eat kind of in an 8-hour window, there's a clock that's inside your body. They're called circadian rhythms. And while yes, you can stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, and and sleep your 8 hours and wake up later. It's not ideal with the timing of your body, right? There are times when it's better to sleep, and there's times when it's better to eat, and there's really times that it's better to exercise. And so it's not just doing those things, but then in following the letter of, well, I slept 8 hours. It's like, well, did I sleep the 8 hours in the time that my body was designed to rest and and recover, versus pushing it later, and then throwing off and then not being in sync with that internal clock or those circadian rhythms.
So what is
So
that
sleeping is
that
obviously,
window of time in your?
well, usually, I mean, you'll see it as right around in most clocks, and of course, with any kind of search engine, you can pull up designs of it. But the ideal time to be in bed is really like 10 o'clock, and then the wake up time is around like 6 o'clock. I mean, that gives you your obviously 8 hour window. But I mean, for a lot of people, and if that's hard for you, that just tells you how far um, how much you've adapted to an abnormal state or conform
Mm.
to kind of this abnormal programming, right? So if that's like, I can't go to bed, and I struggle with this, so I'm not preaching. I'm trying to talk to myself about this. Is like, I don't always live in the proper time thing, and then there's a lot to be said for being out in nature. There's a lot to be said
Mm.
for getting some vitamin D while you're doing it. Um, you know, and so those are our main things. And of course, if you do those, you think the right thoughts, you eat the right foods at the right time, you sleep at the right time, the right amount of time, and you move the right amount of time, then a lot of the other factors will take care of themselves, and at least you can be your best self. I'm getting my body in line with what is truth. And that like because we're both people of faith, that one of my favorite stories in that is like, two good people, two nice people, two people of faith, built their houses, and one person built their house on the rock, and one person built their house on the sand. And the wind and the rain came, but the one that was built on the sand was washed away. So it doesn't mean just because you're a person of faith, you're not going to experience COVID-19, right? Or it doesn't mean because you're a leader, you're not going to experience, but this is a real time to say, did I build my house up to code?
Mm.
I mean, did I build it in code? And just like we've had when, because we live in Southwest Florida, just because we've had hurricanes in the past, the building code is not the same as it was when I moved to Naples in 1969. I mean, they've changed the building code several times. Why? Always after the fact
That's
of a
right.
devastating storm, right? So in this case, it's the same metaphor, right? It's a devastating storm that is sweeping through not just Southwest Florida, and not just the United States of America, but the world. And so I think that you would find that now maybe it's the time to take our own individual codes up a notch, right?
Yeah, and what you've explained are really just simple uh, tweaks to somebody's normal routine if they're not implementing some of these.
Well,
Hmm.
it's, I mean, simple is all nice and elegant, and it's and it can be very efficient, right? I mean, you you know sometimes if it's not simple, then it's not sustainable. And I mean, really, I mean, most people know, like, if they want to lose weight or they want to get in shape, it only takes a couple little things to do that. The difficulty is in the sustaining it.
That's right.
Most of the time, all it really takes to be healthy is just a good attitude. You know what I mean? If you have a good attitude and are willing, you can be a lot healthier than if you don't have a good attitude. But attitude's almost the prerequisite to
Yes. And we control our attitude.
with with effort sometimes, but yes.
With effort
Yes,
sometimes.
yes. And sometimes not successful, but again, it's not
uh,
about being perfect, because I
that in life, we weren't designed to be perfect.
no.
We're designed to, yes, go above and beyond. I always like to say reach that level of excellence, and it's not perfection. It's totally different than having to hold yourself to perfection, because you will, like you said earlier, you will always fail. because we're not
Yes.
designed to be that way.
No.
But if we can, put our best foot forward, incorporate some of these things that you've been talking about today to increase our likelihood of being resilient now during this pandemic, but then afterwards, that's powerful. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that you're all in 100% with everything at the same time. You can step into some of these different habit changes in your life, and your end game, looking at the end game of how you're stepping into that, and how you are repeating those same processes, those good habits, right, to get to where you want to go, and knowing who you need to come alongside of you in order to help you get there, because I think
Yes.
that's part of it. And so, when we think about that, and we think about, you have a practice here in Naples, Florida. Yes, you help people here. You help people, in other places they come to you. So how can people connect with you if they want to hear more about what you do, if they'd like to, schedule some time with you? How can they get in touch with you?
I mean, we of course have a website, Better Habits, betterhealth.com, and we're in the process of redoing our website, but there is a landing page there and a connect page there that you can see. Certainly, we have a Facebook account where we one of the things that I love the most to do is once a month we have a get together and we share a dish. And we have a little information that we share, and we teach on different topics. And I bring in guest speakers, doctors and dietitians and chefs and things like that. And then we talk about all under that think right, eat right, move right, sleep right, all those kinds of topics. And we bring them in to share with the people, and then we post those old videos, those FaceTime Live, and people are always welcome to join us for free, right? It's just, it's a free access, and you can go, and, it's fun. And it's food.
It is fun, and it is food.
And,
it's good food.
Yeah, good food. Yes. Denise Peterson is, does a lot of, makes a majority of the food, but again, it's a shared dish event. So people, bring in food, and that's the highest compliment, is when they're willing to share, put that skin in the game and those kinds of things. And then for most of my movement stuff, like, I really want to know how to move better, I want to follow you that way. We do have a YouTube channel, and we have our Move Right Mondays, and we do some body weight exercises. And, I use the stick mobility guys with their stick exercises. And I think, again, those would just be above, if you're having trouble, walking and getting that 30 minutes in every day, well, then maybe some of those videos would help you, lengthen or strengthen your body so that it can handle 30 minutes. Maybe you can only do 10 or 15 minutes. That's fine.
Well, Dr. Steve, it has been a complete pleasure to have you on the show and really advance the conversation of staying healthy, how to be resilient, during this time, but also beyond. And some of those just simple habit that people can implement. Those changes can mean so much. It's not about, like you said, it's not about perfection, but it's about really just staying the course and being able to be your best self by incorporating some of these things that you shared today. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
No, thank you,
and your
because
knowledge.
you do a great job with this, and then hopefully added something to people thoughts anyway, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak. I always appreciate talking with you and getting to talk with your people, just like having you talk to my people. It's nice to be able to share insights. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Well, you are welcome. All right. Well, I will see you soon. Thank you again. And
My
you
pleasure.
Take care and stay safe.
All right. Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
great afternoon.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Until next time, this is Dr. Kelly Whalen. Keep doing great things, because our world needs leaders like you.